Hey everybody, welcome back. I was going to go ahead and send this out yesterday and continue with the program that I have talking about the history of television, some of the early shows and some of the early types of programs, formats that worked, and I'm going to go ahead and include those links with some descriptions of those videos in your email. But I wanted to talk about something else today, and that's the future of television. Because if there's one thing truly amazing that's changing even as we speak, and that is television and the way it's presented and the way it's viewed. You know, I was just blown away when I saw this the other day. You know, the way we watch television now and the way it was in the past is so completely different. And of course, you know, people will tell me, well, I don't watch television. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You just happen to watch it on the screen of your smartphone or on your tablet. You'll be watching it while you're sitting in the hallways of Bergen or sitting in the library here at Bergen or wherever you may be. One of my favorite times to watch television in a place was 2 years ago. I had some work done on my car. It was on my day off. And so I took the car in at about 9 o'clock in the morning. I was there until 2 o'clock. 5 hours. 5 hours I was there. Now, you're thinking, in the past, if I'm sitting for 5 hours waiting for my car to be done, okay, you got the one TV that they have there, and it usually has some kind of news station or something else. And, of course, these other people are all there, too. But I took out my phone with my headphones, got my HBO app, and I watched 5 episodes of The Sopranos, and it was hysterical because I'm watching The Sopranos in HD quality, sitting in the waiting room of the car dealership waiting for my car to get done, and 5 hours went like that. All right, it's just amazing the way television is presented. One of the articles that I sent you the link for goes back exactly 7 years ago. I didn't realize it was 7 years, but it's 7 years ago, and it's by the guy named Reed Hastings. And Reed Hastings is the CEO and founder of Netflix. Now, I think I have mentioned this before. And it was Reed Hastings who said in this article from November of 2014, he said that in 16 years from now, broadcast television was going to be done. Now, that was a pretty bold statement, even though we were starting to see what Netflix or this streaming service was. See, remember, Netflix started out, and I think I talked about this before, Netflix started out where you would go and to a box, okay, maybe in your Walmart or outside your supermarket, and you would rent a CD, or you would do this by mail. You would rent the CD, and then they gave you a return envelope. So after you watched the movie, you would then send it back, okay? They used to do that with video games also. But then it was Netflix that was the first one to find out about streaming. And they, of course, became the pioneer in how to give you streaming television. And they started to make some real money. And because what they first were bringing you was just already made movies and already made TV shows. And then once they started to make some real money, now they started to produce their own television shows. And we saw this breakthrough. It was the show with Kevin Spacey, Deck of Cards. House of Cards, where, of course, the actor Kevin Spacey, Robin Wright, were a couple who were going through Washington, would eventually become president, and so on. But it was the first ever solely produced show by Netflix, and, of course, it won a couple of Emmy Awards, and was very successful. And, of course, Netflix went on to start making God knows how many shows they have now, all right? And at the same time, with network television, you had television shows that were coming in first with 18 million viewers. Let's see, this is 2014, so I think 2.5 Men is still on the air. Of course, The Big Bang Theory was still on the air, very much so. They were right in the middle of their run. Shows like that were doing very well, but only getting about 15, 16, 17 million people per week. But again, you had to watch it once a week. Even at this time, one of my favorite shows had just ended, but really could have used one of these streaming services because at the time, the show 24, for those who might remember what Fox had on 24, is every hour episode was actually in real time. So you had 24 episodes for the 24 hours of one day for the entire season. And if you missed an episode, you missed an entire hour. If you missed two, then you're like, oh, I'm just going to skip the season because I'm completely lost. I've missed 2 hours. I've missed 2 episodes. I'm done. And there was no place to go. And then finally, during the last season of 24, you could go to Hulu, but you had to wait a month before an episode would appear on Hulu. And that's because the networks wanted you to watch it on there. But then again, we just said, and not we, you, young people, you said, no, I want to watch it when I want to watch it. Don't make me have to get in front of a television set at 8 o'clock on a Monday night to watch this show. I want to watch it when I feel like it. And that's where Reed Hastings and Netflix has, and all of them, Hulu and all the streaming services. Well, one of the things that I'm noticing is, number one, the amount of streaming services that are out there now. I mean, the big ones, of course, when you think about it, are Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney Plus. I mean, these are just the big ones. Okay, they're making buku bucks. They got monthly subscriptions, and they can keep it low as they can get. $8, $10, $12 a month, and we're getting top entertainment. We're getting a lot of good stuff, and they're producing, thanks to the money they're making, they're producing new material. You still have the traditional setup on the networks, and with cable television. All right, you still have the traditional setup where they make their money based on advertising. Because remember, television, just like radio, and newspapers and magazines are all ad driven. They need advertisers in order to succeed. Now, what's funny here is magazines are pretty much done. Yeah, there's still a couple of magazines left, but not many. Newspapers are almost done. There are still some newspapers published, but a daily newspaper costs you $2.50 just for a daily newspaper. And some people, of course, you have your electronic devices. All right. Radio is almost done because you'll pay for a streaming service, or the programming that you originally liked on radio, you now get through podcasting. And some of the most popular podcasts are people who were originally doing this on radio and now do a podcast. And some of them do both. Well, now it looks like television is now no longer, it's still out there. There's still network TV, but the funny thing is I still go back to this. All right? I still go back to 1999, which is only 22 years ago, not that long ago, where Claire Danes, the actress, young actress, was in a television show on ABC called My So-Called Life, and I hated the show. It had a cult following later on, but it wasn't that popular. They only aired 10 of the 14 episodes that were made before it was canceled. It was the lowest ranked network program out of ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS. It was the lowest ranked show for the last 3 weeks it was out. And it still had more viewers than the top ranked show on the networks last night. Because I don't think any network show last night had over 6.5 million viewers. And of course the advertisers are not going to pay top dollar if in prime time on a Wednesday or a Thursday night at 8 o'clock, a network show is only getting 6.5 million viewers. Now, I might be wrong because I don't remember. I watched it on the NFL Network. I believe the NFL game between the Browns and the Broncos was on Fox. If it was, then they probably did get a good amount of people. But let's say Wednesday night. Wednesday night, whatever was showing on NBC, ABC, Fox, or CBS, probably none of them got more than 6.5 million viewers, which was the top-rated show for the night 22 years ago, got you canceled. All right. So now, where is TV going? TV is definitely going the way Reed Hastings said. And if you read it, it's a small article. It's just the statement they made that in 2014 he just felt in 16 years it's got to be done. I thought he was crazy. I felt that there was still a place for streaming, that people would accept streaming. But as you always think, you think people are never going to pay. But you know what? They are. If you give them a good product at a low price and there's competition, which there is, okay? From Amazon Prime, they make their own programs. Hulu, who makes their own programs. And now some of the other. There's a streaming service that I just got, I became fond of about a year or so ago, called Tubi. All right? Tubi's got tens of thousands of movies and TV shows from America, around the world. They have all kinds of programming. All kinds of different programs. And now, for the first time, just in the last week or so, I'm starting to see something I never saw when I went out to Tubi. Is they are now offering up Tubi Originals. See, Tubi, with all the shows and movies that it presents, has advertising. And one of the things that some of these services have proven is that even if we have to, people will watch something even if it's got commercials. We probably saw no better example of that than the cable network AMC. Now, do you all know what AMC stands for? It stands for American Movie Classics. See, AMC was founded in the early 80s as some competition for TCM, or Turner Classic Movies. All right? These are just those old black and white movies that were going to be shown. Your grandparents sit during the day in their retirement homes and watch these old movies all day in black and white. And then as time went on, AMC, which did not show any commercials, couldn't keep up with the, Turner Classic falls under the Turner or Time Warner hat of corporate, Time Warner, the corporate head. So it was under one of the major media companies. So Turner Classic could go ahead. They're funded. They can go ahead and show movies without commercials. AMC, unfortunately, couldn't. So AMC made a decision in the mid-90s to start using commercials with their movies. At first, people thought it was going to kill them. Oh, now you're going to have commercials during your movie? Nobody's going to watch you anymore. They were wrong. People would still watch AMC movies even with the commercials. Well, now, with the advertising money that we're gaining, we can now start reinvesting. We can now produce our own TV shows, and let's see what happens. And sure enough, the first one they produced was a show called Mad Men. Well, Mad Men was a huge success. And then they turned the profit from the Mad Men series and put out The Walking Dead. And then, of course, what was the other one? Breaking Bad. Okay. All of a sudden, AMC was a juggernaut. And it's because of the advertising revenue they were getting. Same thing with Tubi. Tubi is now starting to gain a lot of money through advertising. But one of my favorite stories right now, it's because it's something that it's an outlet, a streaming service that I have been using a lot lately. And I don't know if anybody else knows about it. And that's an app called Pluto TV. Now, Pluto TV is under Viacom, one of the major media companies. Pluto TV has hundreds of stations. First, you have different movie stations. I think there's about 20 or 22 different movie stations. There could be throwback to the 80s, 70s, 90s, westerns, dramas, war, comedy. They have all kinds of different movie channels. And then you get to entertainment, and they'll have all kinds of different. There's a 24-hour Baywatch channel. There's a 24-hour Three's Company channel, the old 70s, 80s sitcom. They show Judge Judy 24 hours. They have a 24-hour Cops or CSI, 24/7, nothing but CSI. They just have hundreds of channels with all kinds of different entertainment with commercials. Well, I'm going to send you the link also to this article. This past August, just a few months ago, it was reported that Pluto TV has now generated $1 billion in revenue a year earlier than they thought. It seems that people are willing, Even with the Netflix, even with the Hulus, even with the Amazon Primes, if there's something they want to watch outside of the regular networks, if it happens to have commercials, they're going to watch it. And Pluto TV seems to be generating a ton of money now for Viacom. And we love it. It's an app. It's stream it. We can watch it everywhere. You know, the traditional television viewing of being in your living room with the big set, we still love to do that. I mean, let's be honest. We don't do it as often as we'd like, but that is still the way we generally like to watch TV. And for those sporting, you know, the networks, and I've said this before, the television networks are still going to make something thanks to the live sports. But even I have to tell you, you know, I'm watching the baseball playoffs, and I'm not watching all of it. But the baseball playoffs are like on FS1, Fox Sports 1, and on TBS. And, you know, those are just basic cable stations. The World Series in 1978 between the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers was on ABC. It averaged 40 million viewers for all 6 games. That's the most watched World Series in television history. And what was happening right around the time that World Series was on? Cable television. HBO was now in full swing. A year later, we would have the dawning of ESPN, the Entertainment, Sports, and Programming Network, CNN, the cable news network, and then within 3 years afterwards, MTV Music Television. So cable was already going to start taking away from the networks, and we've continued to see that. It was slow. Even with cable and with HBO and some of the premium services, taking audiences away from network TV was slow until the streaming came along. Now, Reed Hastings is looking like a genius. And it's going to be very interesting because it's changing overnight. It's changing. It'll probably be different than it'll be different after you watch this than it was before you watch this. I mean, that's how quickly this is all changing. But it's going to be interesting to see where the history of television goes. All right? You've got your quiz, your television quiz. Has to be handed to me by 8 p.m. on Monday night. Any quiz that comes in after 8 p.m. on Monday night will not be accepted. That's why you have a deadline. There's a couple of radio quizzes still sitting in my email box. They're just going to get deleted. I don't know why people sent them 3 or 4 days late. They're no good. All right? You have until Monday night, 8 p.m. to get the TV quiz in. We'll see you guys. Have a great weekend.